I never really thought much about Sam when we first met. He was just the guy who worked the shift after mine at the small gym downtown. I'd finish mopping the floors and wiping down the benches, and like clockwork, he'd show up in a worn hoodie and beat-up sneakers, earbuds hanging around his neck, and a Gatorade in hand. We didn't talk much at first. Just a few "hey man" exchanges. Maybe a joke if one of us was in a good mood. He seemed chill. Tall, a little scruffy, had that relaxed confidence that didn't demand attention, but somehow still got it. I just assumed he was straight. No real reason, just the way he talked, how he carried himself, the occasional reference to girls he'd dated. I didn't read too far into it. Not then. But when I picked up extra shifts, we started overlapping more, working together, cleaning up at closing time, sharing protein bars and energy drinks behind the front desk. He started teasing me about my music taste. I teased him about his addiction to gas station burritos. It became easy, comfortable. Then, one Friday night, the gym was dead. Just one guy running half asleep on a treadmill, and someone scrolling on the weight bench. Sam leaned over the desk where I was half dozing and said, "Want to ditch early and grab food?" I raised an eyebrow. "Pretty sure that's against every rule here," he shrugged. "Who's gonna care? Nobody's coming in." And 20 minutes later, we were sitting in a booth at an all-night diner around the corner. Cheap lighting, greasy menus, the kind of place where you know the coffee tastes like burnt toast, but you order it anyway. That night, we actually talked, not just about gym stuff, real stuff. He told me he dropped out of college twice, that his dad barely talked to him, that he wasn't sure what the hell he was doing with his life. There was something honest about the way he said it, not dramatic, not fishing for sympathy, just tired and real. I told him about my ex, about feeling like I was running in place, watching everyone else figure things out while I stayed stuck. He didn't interrupt. He didn't make it weird. He just sat there, listening, watching me in that quiet way he always did. And I remember thinking, for the first time, maybe I was wrong about him. After that night, something shifted. Nothing big. Just more. More eye contact, more casual touches. A hand on my shoulder that lingered. A playful shove that left his fingers gripping my arm a second too long. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that this was just what straight guys did when they were comfortable. But it didn't feel casual. It felt loaded, like something unspoken hanging in the air between us. And then came the moment that changed everything, the one I still think about when I'm lying in bed trying to make sense of it all. It happened late, after another quiet night at the gym. And that's where it really started. It was a Thursday night. Cold, quiet, the kind of night where everything feels a little more still than usual. Sam and I had just closed the gym. We were the only ones there. Lights off, music silent, the whole place echoing with that faint hum of nothing. He was locking up the back while I leaned against the counter at the front, scrolling on my phone and waiting. I figured we'd nod goodbye like we always did and go our separate ways. But when he came back around to the front, he didn't leave. Instead, he dropped his backpack by the desk, leaned his forearms on the counter across from me, and said, "You got plans tonight?" I looked up. No. Why?" He shrugged. "Just thought maybe we could hang. I don't really feel like going home." It threw me off. We'd never hung out outside of that one diner trip. And now he wanted to spend more time together. Outside of work? "Yeah, sure," I said, a little too quickly. "Want to chill at my place?" He nodded like that was exactly what he'd hoped I'd say. We walked together, not talking much, just the quiet sound of our sneakers hitting the pavement. When we got to my apartment, I realized suddenly how small it was. How messy. How personal. I hadn't even thought to clean. He didn't seem to care. He flopped down on my couch like he'd been there 100 times before, legs stretched out, fingers laced behind his head. "You got any beer?" I grabbed 2 from the fridge and handed him 1. We clinked bottles without saying anything and sat there, drinking in silence for a while. Then we put on some dumb action movie and started making fun of it the way we always did at work. And somewhere in the middle of that movie, when the city was sleeping and the room was warm and the drinks were settling in, I noticed how close he was sitting. Like, really close. His thigh brushed mine every time he shifted. His foot tapped against mine, and every time I looked over at him, his eyes were already on me. Not in a weird way, not in a creepy way, just watching. And I couldn't pretend I didn't feel it anymore. Around 2 a.m., I stood up to stretch and said, "You crashing here?" He looked up, one eyebrow raised. "That cool?" "Yeah," I said, trying not to sound too eager. "Couch is yours." He didn't move right away, just kept looking at me like he was debating something. "Actually," he said slowly, "would it be weird if I just crashed in your bed with you?" I froze. He said it casually, like it was no big deal. Like we were just two guys who happened to share a small apartment and didn't feel like sleeping alone. But the way he said it, the way his voice dipped at the end, soft and unsure, that's what hit me. I shrugged, trying to play it cool even as my heart was beating so loud I was sure he could hear it. Sure, I mean, it's a queen, plenty of room. He followed me to my room without a word, pulled off his hoodie, dropped his jeans, climbed into bed in just his t-shirt and boxers, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I slid in beside him, facing away, every nerve in my body on high alert. I stared at the wall, trying not to think, trying not to hope. Then I felt it. His knee brushed mine, then his arm, then his breath. Close. Too close to ignore. And finally, his voice. Quiet, almost hesitant. "You still awake?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't have to. He already knew I was. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My heart was thudding in my ears, and I could feel the warmth of him at my back. Closer now. Closer than before. Then came his hand. Not sudden. Not forceful. Just a slow, cautious touch. His fingers grazed the curve of my side, right above my hip, like he was testing the line between accidental and intentional. I stayed perfectly still. That hand stayed there for a beat too long, and when it didn't retreat, when it instead moved just slightly, just enough, I knew this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't half asleep fumbling or a bro being overly comfortable. I turned slightly, just enough to glance at him over my shoulder. His eyes met mine in the dark. There was no smirk, no playfulness, just a raw, stripped-down expression I'd never seen on him before. Vulnerable, a little scared, a little hopeful. "You sure?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His throat moved as he swallowed. "I don't know," he admitted. I didn't want to sleep alone tonight." "That's not really what this feels like," I said, not accusing, not defensive, just honest. "I know," he said. Look, man, I've been thinking about this for weeks. About you. And I keep telling myself it's not a big deal, that it's just curiosity or whatever. But then I see you and it's like, I don't know, I want to be around you. I feel better when I'm with you." It hit me in the chest, not the words themselves, but the way he said them. Hesitant. Like he didn't trust himself with the truth. I shifted, turning to face him fully. We were inches apart now, sharing the same breath. "Is this why you came over tonight?" I asked. His jaw clenched. I didn't plan on saying anything. I just didn't want to be alone. But now that I'm here... He reached up, touching my arm gently, like he was asking for permission without saying it. I didn't stop him. "I have never done anything like this," he said. I nodded. "You don't have to. Nothing has to happen." "I know," he said quickly. "It's not about that. I want to be close to you." I could have cried, honestly, not because it was romantic or sexy or even surprising, but because it was real. I scooted closer, resting my forehead against his. My hand found his side, warm under the thin fabric of his shirt. We lay there like that, breathing in sync, hearts pounding in a shared silence that said more than either of us could. His fingers curled around mine. His eyes fluttered closed. And we stayed like that for a long time. Nothing more, nothing rushed, just that closeness he'd asked for. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just one night. Not for me. And, judging by the way he didn't let go, Not for him either. The next morning felt weird, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of weird where everything looks the same, but you know something important just changed, even if no one's saying it out loud. I woke up before Sam. He was still on his side, facing me, breathing soft and steady. His hand was still loosely holding mine under the blanket, and I just lay there staring at him, wondering if he'd regret it when he woke up. I didn't, not even a little. When he finally stirred, blinking blearily in the dim light, there was this brief moment of hesitation in his eyes. I felt it like a static charge between us, but then he gave me this small, sleepy half-smile and said, "Morning," and that was it. No panic, no backtracking, no pretending it didn't happen. We didn't talk about what happened, not directly. We got up, made coffee like we always did. He showered, I threw on sweats, we shared some leftover Chinese from the fridge. It was normal. Except it wasn't. He stayed the whole day, said he didn't feel like going home yet. We didn't do anything special. Just watched TV. Played video games. Made a grocery run. But the space between us felt charged. Like everything we did was colored by the fact that we'd fallen asleep wrapped around each other. And even though nothing physical happened beyond that, the energy between us had shifted. There was a new layer to everything now. By the time night rolled around, he was still at my place, feet propped on my coffee table, wearing one of my hoodies like it was the most natural thing in the world. He looked over at me at one point, controller in hand, and said, "You ever think maybe we're not just roommates?" I paused, not even sure what game we were playing anymore. "You mean like friends?" He rolled his eyes. "No, idiot, I mean like..." He cut himself off and looked back at the screen. Never mind. I set my controller down and turned to face him. "No, say it." He sighed, rubbed the back of his neck, and then muttered, "I think I like you." The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's waiting for something big to happen. I didn't smile, didn't joke. I just said, "Yeah, I know. I think I like you too." He looked at me then, fully, with this raw honesty I hadn't seen from him before. "So what do we do now?" he asked. I shrugged, but I wasn't unsure. "We just see where it goes." And that was enough. He stayed again that night. This time, there wasn't even a question about where he was sleeping. We brushed our teeth side by side, crawled into bed like we'd been doing it for years. No tension, no awkwardness, just quiet understanding. When the lights went out, he slid closer without hesitation. Pulled me in the way he had the night before, but this time it felt even more deliberate. He whispered, "This doesn't feel weird to you?" "No," I said, my voice steady. "Does it feel wrong to you?" He shook his head against my shoulder. "No, just new." And with that, he kissed my neck. Slow, careful, like he was still trying to figure it out. I let him, because I was figuring it out too. And somewhere in that silent, shared space, a door opened between us that neither of us wanted to close. We didn't tell anyone, not because we were ashamed, but because we didn't know what we were yet. It was all still so new, and neither of us wanted to put labels on something we were still figuring out ourselves. Sam kept coming over. Sometimes he brought clothes and left them at my place. Sometimes he cooked us dinner, even though he was awful at it. And most nights he stayed, crawled into bed with me like it was his new normal. But at the gym, everything stayed the same. We didn't act different, didn't flirt or get weird around each other. It was like we had this silent agreement to keep it between us for now, just to see if it was real, and it felt real. That was the thing. There were moments, small, stupid ones, that stuck with me. Like when we were restocking towels in the locker room and he brushed past me, real close, and whispered, "Can't stop thinking about last night," before walking off like nothing happened. Or the time he caught me watching him from across the gym floor and shot me this tiny smirk that made my knees go weak. But the best moment, the one that really got me, it was a Sunday afternoon. We were at my place doing absolutely nothing. Just him stretched out on my couch, eyes half closed, flipping through his phone while I sat at the table, trying to catch up on some freelance work. He looked up, totally unprompted, and said, "I sleep better with you." It wasn't meant to be romantic. He said it casually, like he was just stating a fact. but something about it made my chest tighten. "You know you're not subtle, right?" I said, smirking. He grinned. "Yeah, but you like it." I did, but part of me still didn't trust it. Not because I didn't believe him, but because I knew how complicated this could get. I'd been with guys who'd flirt, experiment, and then backpedal the second it got real. And I couldn't afford to go through that again. Not with Sam. So I started watching for signs, hesitations, distance, regret. But none came. He was all in, at least as far as I could tell. Comfortable, curious, affectionate in private, chill in public. It was like he'd quietly decided that whatever this was, he was ready to explore it. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe it was okay to feel something too. Still, there was one thing I couldn't stop thinking about. He'd never kissed me. Not really. There'd been a forehead kiss, a few shy pecks on the neck. Touches that said I'm close but not all the way there yet. And I got it. I wasn't going to push, but it still made me wonder. One night, we were lying in bed, both half asleep, his arm wrapped around me, his fingers tracing lazy shapes on my chest. I rolled over to face him, the soft glow from the streetlight outside, painting shadows on his face. "Can I ask you something?" I said. He blinked awake. "Yeah? Why haven't you kissed me?" His eyes flicked down to my mouth and back up. I didn't want to mess it up. "You think a kiss would mess this up?" "I don't know," he said. I've never done that. Kissed a guy, I mean. Thought maybe I'd do it wrong." "You won't," I said, voice low. "It's not that different." He stared at me for a second, like he was weighing everything in his head. And then, slowly, carefully, he leaned in. The kiss was soft, gentle, hesitant, like he was stepping into something brand new with no idea where it might lead. But when he pulled back and looked at me, I could see it written all over his face. He wasn't afraid anymore. He wanted this. And so did I. The more time Sam spent at my place, the less he went home. He started referring to my apartment as ours by accident, saying things like, "We're out of coffee," or "Did you lock the door before we left?" Little slips that made my heart do things I tried not to admit. He was still figuring it all out. I knew that. We hadn't had any serious conversations about where this was heading, but his actions said enough. He was always near, always touching me in small, casual ways, always watching me like he was trying to memorize something. But not everything was smooth. It started when we ran into a couple of his gym buddies on a random Tuesday night. We were at this local pizza spot, grabbing dinner, sitting across from each other in a corner booth. It wasn't a date, at least not officially, but it felt like one. We were laughing at something dumb when two guys walked in, James and Ty, both regulars from the gym. They spotted Sam right away and walked over. "Yo," James said, grinning. "Didn't expect to see you here. You on a date or something?" Sam chuckled, looked at me, then back at them. "Just grabbing food." They nodded, glancing between us, and I saw the flicker of realization in Ty's expression. That quiet moment when someone puts the pieces together but doesn't say anything out loud. "Right," he said. "Cool. Well, we'll catch you later." After they left, Sam sat back. His smile dimmed a little. He didn't say anything for a while, just kept picking at his crust like it was suddenly too interesting. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Just thinking." I knew better than to press. That night, back at the apartment, he was quiet. Not distant, just quieter than usual. We watched a movie, curled up on the couch, but he didn't lean into me the way he usually did. He didn't rest his head on my shoulder or steal the blanket. I let it go. But later, when we were getting ready for bed, he stood by the door of my bedroom, hand on the frame, not moving. "You think they knew?" he asked. I paused. "James and Ty?" He nodded. "Probably." He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't care if they know. I didn't think this would be so obvious." It's not, I said gently. They're just not dumb. He looked at me then, eyes tired but honest. I don't want this to mess with your life. Or mine. It's not messing with anything. He nodded again, then crossed the room and pulled off his shirt like it was the most natural thing in the world. Climbed into bed beside me like always. But when he wrapped his arm around me, I felt something different. Not hesitation. Just a quiet kind of fear. Tell me if it ever feels wrong, he murmured into the dark. It doesn't, I said, and I'll tell you if it does. That seemed to be enough. He kissed the back of my shoulder. Soft, quick, grounding. And for the first time that night, I felt him fully relax. It had been a month since that first night. 30 quiet mornings, waking up next to each other. 30 sleepy dinners. 30 shared coffees, shared silences, shared things we weren't quite brave enough to name. And we still hadn't talked about what we were. Until the night we finally did. We were walking home from the grocery store. It had started raining halfway there, not heavy, but enough to soak our hoodies and cling to our skin. We ducked under an awning to wait it out, both of us laughing and out of breath, clutching a bag of eggs and a half-destroyed loaf of bread. He looked at me, really looked, and said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah. Do you think this is temporary?" The way he said it, careful, quiet, like he'd rehearsed it 100 times, told me everything. He was scared, and I got it. I was scared too. I looked at him, water dripping from his bangs, hoodie plastered to his chest, and said, "Do you want it to be?" "No," he said, quick, no hesitation. "That's the thing. I don't." I nodded slowly. "Then maybe we stop pretending it's nothing." He exhaled, like I'd just pulled a weight off him. "But what do we call it?" he asked. "Are we dating?" I smiled. "Feels like it." "And you're okay with that, are you?" He looked at me for a second longer, then leaned in and kissed me, right there, under the flickering yellow light of an old awning, with rain soaking the pavement around us and grocery bags digging into our arms. It was the kind of kiss that felt like an answer, the kind that said, "Yeah, this is real." After that night, we didn't hide it anymore. We didn't shout it from rooftops, but we didn't dodge questions either. When James saw us holding hands outside the gym, he just nodded, like he already knew. Some people were surprised. Some weren't. But the only reaction that mattered was Sam's, and every time he looked at me now, he didn't look away. He started staying at mine full time, brought over the rest of his clothes, changed his mailing address. The hoodie that used to be mine became his. The toothbrush he used to borrow now had a permanent spot in the cup beside mine. We didn't talk about the future yet. Not college, not careers, not the big stuff. But we talked about what we were having for dinner, what show we were binging, whether or not we should get a cat. And that was enough. One night we were lying in bed, legs tangled, half asleep when he said it. "I love you." Just like that. No warning. No big speech. Just a sleepy confession pressed into the space between us, like it had been waiting to be said. I didn't hesitate. "I love you too," because I did. Because I had for a while now. Because somehow, in the middle of ordinary days and quiet nights, we had become something neither of us expected, but both of us needed. It's funny how something that used to feel complicated, unthinkable even, becomes so normal you can't remember what life was like before it. Sam never officially moved in. He just stopped leaving. His old place was still technically his, but the only thing left there was a box of winter boots and an unopened electric kettle. Everything else, his laundry, his keys, his laughter, was here, with me. We started doing Sunday grocery runs together, arguing over almond milk versus oat milk like a married couple. He'd steal my socks. I'd steal the last bite of his protein bar. And somehow, that felt like love too. Our friends adjusted. Some raised eyebrows. Some didn't blink. One guy at the gym started acting weird around Sam until Sam, cool as ever, wrapped an arm around my shoulder and said, Got a problem? He didn't after that. We never tried to be some grand story. We weren't perfect. We had fights. About dumb stuff mostly. Dishes. Who forgot to pay the internet bill? Whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie, it is. But even when we were pissed, we didn't go to bed angry. That was a quiet rule we made without saying it out loud. One night, months later, we were walking back from a night out. Late, a little buzzed. The kind of night that hums in your chest long after it's over. Sam had his hands shoved into his jacket pockets, his hair messy from the wind. "You ever think about how this started?" he asked. "All the time," he grinned. "I thought I was just crashing at your place that night." "Yeah," I said, bumping into his shoulder. "You never left." "Didn't want to." I stopped walking. He did too. And for a second, we just stood there under a street lamp, the world quiet except for our breathing. "I'm glad you didn't," I said. He looked at me, really looked, and nodded. "Me too." We didn't need a proposal. We didn't need a label that made sense to anyone else. What we had was ours. Two guys who met on opposite shifts at a gym. Two guys who slept a little too close one night and never really let go. It started with a quiet moment and became a life.